Good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live and then available on demand. And we're available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple Television, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Monday, March 6, 2023. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited, live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+, you will see it and hear it.
Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a non-profit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ+ community. Our mission is to support the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our Black community, Latino, lesbian, trans, students and youth, seniors, HIV, AIDS, healthcare, business, political advocacy, and faith. Help us support our community.
We are part of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
Let's welcome anchor FayWhat. She is a radio and television personality and has a popular blog and YouTube channel aiming to unite the L and the G together. She's a hostess and MC for many South Florida events, an animal advocate, and owner of Fays for Her Family. Also, make sure to catch the FayWhat Show, the first LGBTQ+ morning show Mondays at 9 a.m. Eastern online or your smart TV. Faye was the winner of the 2022 SFGN Best Local Television Personality. Welcome, Faye.
Hi, hello everyone. So happy to be here. I still smell like gay boys. I was at winter party.
Oh.
Period. That's it. I don't got to say much else. Yeah, you know who you are. Next up, let's welcome my brother from another mother. His name is Dr. Julio Capo Jr. Julio is a proud board member of the Stonewall National Museum and Archives in Fort Lauderdale, one of the largest LGBTQ archives in the United States, and an associate professor of history and the deputy director of the Wilsonian Public Humanities Lab at Florida International University. He's the author of the book Welcome to Fairyland, Queer Miami Before 1940, and an editor and contributor to the Made by History section of the Washington Post, which offers historical context to today's headlines. Good evening, Julio. Welcome back, papi.
Hi, mi amor. It's so good to be here with you. And I also probably smell of, well, I didn't go, but or like hang out with anybody, but I probably just smell like gay boy. Like, it's just like a natural scent.
That's every week.
And I love it.
Tmy mi amor. It's my sense. All right, serious. Let's welcome anchor, my homegirl, DJ Nena, resident DJ for Lit Bar, Wilton Manors, my favorite, by the way, and military veteran from New Jersey. DJ Nena has a BM in commercial music technology and an MA in English and creative writing. She has been a local DJ and music producer for the LGBTQ community of South Florida for over 20 years. Good evening, DJ Nena.
Oh my God, over 20 years, I'm 100.
Oh, not even a little bit.
But
wait,
yes.
I'm not arguing with you.
No comments from the peanut gallery. And speaking of peanut galleries, let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro.
Wow, it's going to be one of those kind of shows.
Oh man, you tripped me up. Let's welcome Gregg Shapiro, inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 9 books, including the forthcoming Refrain in Light, an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites. His movie review column, called Screensaver, can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco's Bay Area reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Good evening, my friend.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening.
Hello.
We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the Queer News today, Monday, March 6th, 2023, National Oreo Day, which also happens to be National Dentist's Day.
Oh, man.
Coincidence? I think not.
I think not. I love Oreos. All right, first, let's queer up education. The Supreme Court hears student debt relief for 1.8 million LGBTQ plus Americans. After the Supreme Court's historic hearing that will determine the fate of President Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness initiative, millions of borrowers are anxiously waiting for updates. Biden's plan, if it goes forward, would ultimately wipe out up to $20,000 in federal student loans for up to 40 million borrowers. But federal courts blocked the initiative last fall following multiple legal challenges by Republicans and GOP-controlled states. The administration appealed two of those challenges to the Supreme Court, which held an oral argument hearing last week. The court expected to issue a decision in June, and here are some of those developments. First, Biden says he is not confident that the Supreme Court will uphold his student loan forgiveness plan. He told reporters this week, quote, "I'm confident we are on the right side of the law. I'm not confident about the outcome of the decision yet," end quote. Second, there is no backup plan if the Supreme Court strikes down student loan forgiveness. No next steps are planned. Of course, the outcome of the Supreme Court decision will likely have dramatic effects on the politics in America. Here are the actual numbers. The 4-year annual average college tuition has risen dramatically. For private colleges and universities in 1992, yearly costs were $21,860. In 2022, it rose to $39,400. That's an 80% increase. For public institutions, yearly costs in 1992 were $4,870. By 2022, that had risen to $10,940, a 125% increase. This is a queer issue. Approximately 1.8 million LGBTQ plus Americans have filed for debt relief. There is great resentment toward these dramatically rising education costs in America, and this program is now being reviewed, as we said, before the Supreme Court. Even Republicans have expressed concerns that it will draw attention to the politics of resentment and which party is fighting for debt relief. 2024 battleground states have the largest numbers affected if the Republicans and the GOP-controlled states help defeat student debt relief. For example, the largest of these battleground states is, you guessed it, Florida, with approximately 112,000 LGBTQ plus applicants, then 84,000 in Georgia, 70,000 LGBT in Michigan, 60,000 in North Carolina, 56,000 in Arizona, and 35,000 in the battleground state of Wisconsin. And overall, more than 40 million Americans and as many as 2.8 million LGBTQ plus will be adversely affected by this decision. If repealed, it's going to reflect a lot of unhappy voters. The numbers are overwhelming. This is an example of how issues that are before all Americans are issues before LGBT. We forget in that Supreme Court hearing last week that really dramatic numbers of LGBT are hanging in the balance. 1.8 million applications, and it could grow dramatically by another million if it's approved to 2.8 million as the estimates. It's a big issue. $10,000 in terms of the automatic. If you're Pell in your loan programs, it's up to $20,000. But this could have very significant effects, because when we're fighting over the 1%, 2%, 3% in the margins of victories in battleground states, these number of voters really could be significant.
I'm really glad I went to college in the 1880s. I mean the 1980s. Because I can't even imagine the prospect of going into that kind of debt when there's not even a guarantee of employment in so many fields. So it's really frightening.
Well, you know, you guys know that my wife is a nurse practitioner and she's a habitual student. She just loves to go to school, you know, and because of that, folks out there that are single, when you marry someone, you get their debt. All right. So we have like $70,000 in school loans. Okay. It's not $5. You understand? So this 20 grand is a drop in the bucket, but it helps, you know, it really does help, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I did apply for this, and they get back to you after about 3 or 4 weeks as they look at your information and they say, yes, you qualify if it goes through. Now, don't get me wrong. I got my bachelor's and my master's were paid for by the military. So the school debt that I have was before I went into those programs. So it's not a lot that I owe, but if I got this, it would wipe it clean, and I would be at a zero balance. And thankfully,
that's incredible. And that would be awesome to have a zero balance.
Yeah, and I mean, I have a zero balance for the bachelor's and the master's, which is, but still, it's still have a debt.
I'm curious. Why do you think states? GOP-led states filed the block on this. What is it? What are they trying to achieve? It's unclear to me what they're really trying to achieve.
I feel like I could talk about this all day. I won't, I promise. But as a public educator, that is, before I taught at Florida International University, which is the largest Hispanic serving institution, the largest HSI in the country, where most of our students are working class, receive Pell Grants, are working 2 or 3 jobs to make it through. And before that, I taught at UMass Amherst, another large public university. So I'm deeply committed to public education. I personally believe, and I know so many of us do, that public education is a human right? That is, that access to an affordable education, if not free education, is necessary for an informed citizenry, right? That is, we could only be good citizens and make informed decisions if we are educated and if that education is accessible. This is a queer issue, not just because of people who are LGBTQ, but because, access to those who, access has always been limited to those who are higher in the tier, That is, people who can afford. We saw that increase that you read, Al. The increase was largely in public universities, even though privates have gone up too.
125%.
That ain't the same thing as the private, 100. That is to what? Who can afford public education? That's not for the public. Is not public education. There's a few things that are happening here. There is a concern about having informed citizenry, especially with all this kind of culture wars as entering the education. That's not new. That's been happening since at least the 70s, And there's no question that lots of state legislatures, including Florida, are seeking to privatize education. That's very much a part of the process. All of this, I think, is largely leading to this kind of movement. It's incredibly dangerous, and it also just leads to lack of critical thinking, lack of humanities, an attack on even certain parts of STEM, That is, there's a very particular kind of professionalization that is being pushed on our students. Talk about indoctrination. It really looks like something very different.
It's just like taking Black history out of the schools, They want to keep people dumb. They don't want people to educate themselves and better themselves and be better citizens.
Yeah.
You literally just took the words right out of my mouth, because I was literally about to say, I'm like, they want to keep certain groups uneducated. They don't want you to have the access to the knowledge.
I read so much op-ed opinion that says that basically radical conservatives, evangelicals, have drawn a line in the sand that they believe our college institutions are the hotbeds of progressive liberal thinking, and if they can slow that down, that's good for them in the long run. Do you think that you teach?
You know who else said that? Joe McCarthy, That's actually literally attacked the university system. In the state of Florida, the Florida legislature was known as the Johns Committee, really went in to purge what they thought was communist infiltration concentration, which is not like that would be our idea of wokeness today, right? Like that is
right.
They were really worried about liberals in these spaces. I mean, history is it never it's not history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Like this is and there's no question that we could see so many parallels of what was happening in the anti-leftist attacks. And really, I'm using that word to kind of reflect what they thought, right? But the attack on universities is not new. It's been decades in the making. It's taking new form.
Julio, help us in the understanding of the lines that you drew there. In those historical examples in the 50s and the 60s, how did we get out of them? How did we move beyond this kind of attack?
I don't think you're going to like my answer, Al. I'm not entirely certain we ever did. I think in some ways, right, people resisted, right? Like Joe McCarthy eventually was censored by the Senate, right? He had gone too far when he attacked the Army in particular, and people were like, you can't attack the Army. And this way he had said there were, even the Republican Party, Eisenhower, right, understood that what he was saying was not true, and it was theater, and that there was a massive resistance to the Republican Party at that point, which was shifting, right? The political parties have shifted, and a lot of this movement went kind of underground, and it shifted form. In some ways, I want to say that even though people resisted and were able to secure really important labor practices in the universities and K through 12 education, no question that happened. People resisted and they secured a lot of forms of protections. But other forms got kind of reinvented and embedded into our system with the corporatization of universities, with for-profit universities. Higher education just looks really different today. It didn't happen overnight. It took decades and decades. I don't want to move on. I know that we have to go, but one of the biggest things that really resisted, right, and this was especially true in the South, including in Florida, at this very moment of McCarthy, for example, was the desegregation of schools, right? That is, like, a lot of southern states were like, you know what, we'll privatize all of our schools and there just won't be any public schools. That way we could defy the Supreme Court decision of Brown versus Board of Education. Exactly. This talk of, there's so many historical parallels and genealogy. I feel like I'm going off on this rant, but I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry out there. But this is an enormous issue, and it affects every single way that we are able to do the work we need to do to be an informed citizenry and make informed decisions. You are entitled to a good and affordable, if not free, access to education.
Yeah,
I love that. I sometimes call Al a fortune teller. Okay, is it going to pass?
It's going to pass. Yeah, I think that the Supreme Court is going to come in, and it's going to be, it's going to come in right close, because I think several of the justices that are political in nature are going to respond to the fears of what this is going to do in terms of voter base, and so I think that there is a 52-48 chance that it's going to.
So there's a chance.
So you're saying there's
at the end of the day. At the end of the day, this only comes down to money, and clearly, the government will spend money. The U.S. government will spend billions upon billions upon billions when they decide to, and their own hides. These battleground states that we just talked about. One of the reasons why we clarified that this is an LGBT issue is a lot of people are not looking at the politics behind this. Our community is not looking at the politics of behind this. But I assure you, there are people in Washington that are looking at the politics. And if politics are at play, there's a chance of passage. That's why I thought, to be honest with you, and your question's a great one. I think the president's comment of I'm confident of the standing in the law. I'm not confident that we will win yet. He was blowing a dog whistle that I think we are going to win, but I can't go out on the limb to say the court's going to do it.
Got it.
So we'll wait and see. It's going to be interesting.
Looking forward to that answer.
But that doesn't deny the history of what you just said, and that Americans deserve the access to a good college education.
College education, should you want it.
And not be exorbitantly expensive.
That's right.
That's really the issue here.
I'm a historian, so I don't feel comfortable ever predicting the future. But
okay. Well, fortunately, I'm not. So.
All right. Next, let's queer up religion. Sunshine Cathedral Food Ministry given award by Salvation Army. The Salvation Army has a long history of anti-LGBTQ+ stances and policies. They have fought to be able to circumvent laws that block churches from discriminating against LGBTQ+ individuals. Their shelters and recovery facilities have repeatedly been investigated for denying access to LGB and especially the T transgender individuals. The evangelical organization has been at continued odds with the LGBTQ+ community, and that's why many were surprised when Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church, was recently given the Community Hero of the Year award. The award was presented to the food ministry team and was accepted by Reverend Ann Atwell. The special events and community events coordinator for the local Salvation Army ministry, Robert Beasley, appeared at Sunshine Cathedral yesterday to speak at their Sunday service about how an organization that has traditionally not been queer-friendly ended up partnering with a queer church. Beasley explained how happy he was to work with the LGBTQ+ community, which he stated was his community as well. He told the story of how the Salvation Army food pantry had fallen on hard times during the pandemic and how food donations were difficult to get. He said that the group's PR team reached out to several organizations in the area, and it was only Sunshine Cathedral who responded. Beasley said of Sunshine, and I quote, "You not only say it, you mean it. When you say it, you will support the community. You not only talk the talk, you walk the walk."
You all, and they have some great programs and initiatives that they have activated in the community throughout the course of the year. And I met with the pastors, and they are awesome. So on behalf of the Salvation Army, we proudly recognize the Sunshine Cathedral as our Community Hero of the Year partner. Thank you for your support, and keep doing the great work that you're doing today. So here goes.
That video was really pretty to watch. You know, like I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm sure we all do. I have lots of thoughts on everything. She's talkative, me.
I'm sorry, did you say she is?
I did too.
Is that your pronoun?
That's a lot. There's a little Latina takeover tonight. And like, you know what it is? I think we always had to make room for people to grow. And like, I find it very difficult sometimes when we kind of draw this line and we're like, that's it. We feel a certain way and not allow. What I do want us to be cautious about, right, is that this is not just lip service, right, or it's not just some kind of veneer that we put on what could often be very clearly anti-LGBTQ policy, right? This doesn't fix things, right? But that is if there is structural change within an organization that seeks to make amends, right? Yeah. Then I'm all for it. Like, we have to be able to say, hey, people, we changed our minds, right? It's kind of like I hate it when people are like talk about politicians like, oh, they're wishy-washy or they're flip-floppers or whatever. People learn and they change their minds, and that is, I think we have to make room for that.
But
right?
this gives people hope. It gives people hope that even those hateful people can change or can maybe educate themselves. Like during Christmas time, when I see them ringing that bell with that big red pot, I always want to give them a finger, you know, or throw a rock in there. You know what I mean? And sometimes I do throw a rock in there. And now this gives me hope that maybe not the whole entire organization is like that. Yeah. Maybe they can evolve to a place where they can, you know, treat our community better.
Right. As Gomer Pyle would say, surprise, surprise, surprise. Yeah. And then add to that, there was that touching kind of coming out, his story, in Beasley's story. It was a nice thing. It was nice to see that.
Mm-hmm. You know, 2014, I believe it was, in Sarasota, Chuck, my husband, helped organize a food program on the sidewalk at the Salvation Army in downtown Sarasota. And we had quite a large contingent of LGBT that were participating with Chuck, and it was something he wanted to do in terms of helping in providing food, and you could get a plate of food and various different kinds of things. And the director of the Salvation Army came out of the building and said, please remove this off of our property. And of course, you know me, I said, make us. Right. And I said, please call the police. because I would like to make sure that we film this as you remove these LGBT off the Salvation Army sidewalk in front of the Salvation Army. Police came, policeman, car pulls in, patrol car across the street, walks up to us. What's going on here? We're feeding people, and they don't like it because we're queer. And he goes, oh, okay, please don't step off the sidewalk, and I'll sit in the car until y'all are all finished, and I'll stay here. And it was a memory of the Salvation Army had a particular bent.
Yeah.
This news is fabulous, in my opinion, because Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church, is the Salvation Army's Community Hero of the Year. In 2014, that was an impossibility. Impossible. And I'm so moved by what you said. The benefit of the doubt, of the possibility of change is powerful words. I always remind my friends that sometimes we are so absolutist in the LGBTQ community. It's all or nothing. That is not how the world works. Yeah. I always remind my friends, in 2006, there was a senator from Illinois that said gay marriage is not the right choice. And that senator from Illinois was Senator Barack Obama, who goes on to light up the White House in 2015. We have to be willing to accept change. That's what's so wonderful here. Is the Salvation Army, the Salvation Army is the Salvation Army. In Faye's response of how I think about the bell ringing at Christmas. Depends on which day of the week they're ringing the bell. But at the end of the day, if they continue to make commitment, charity, and acceptance commitments like this, the LGBTQ community has so much alignment with Salvation Army, and Salvation Army has so much alignment with us to help people. That's what the most important thing is. This is really an incredible story.
Next, let's queer up Road to Stonewall. Sydney's success now turned the eyes of LGBTQ plus world to World Pride 2025 in U.S. Capitol, Washington, D.C.
Hello, gorgeous folks. Are you ready for a week of celebration, inspiration, and empowerment in one of the queer cities in the world? I'm Tiffany, she, they, your celebration chair.
And I'm Sahan, he, him, Director of Operations. And we're so excited to tell you about some of the incredible events that we already have planned for World Pride 2025.
We'll make our voices heard with a historic march and rally from the Lincoln Memorial to the Capitol building in the footsteps of Martin Luther King Jr. and the millions of others who have demanded equality for all.
Our two-day festival will feature hundreds of community groups, artisans, and multiple stages with dozens of live acts featuring performers from around the world, as well as exhibitor space for participating Interpride organizations.
And we'll partner with Interpride to honor international community heroes with a dazzling red carpet gala at the world-renowned Kennedy Center for Performing Arts.
Our one-of-a-kind illumination boat parade will feature brilliantly lit boats, yachts, and ferries along the Potomac River. Interpride members will enjoy a special reception including dancing, food, and music aboard our Pride flagship, the Odyssey DC.
Our beloved parade will feature hundreds of contingents showcasing their pride along one of the world's grandest avenues.
You'll experience our annual tradition of painting the town with pride. Thousands of homes, businesses, and landmarks will display their pride with a variety of show-stopping designs.
Hi, I'm Jerry Houston from Pride Radio and the Entertainment Chair. We'll conclude the week in partnership with iHeartRadio and Pride Radio with a free star-studded concert and dance party in the footsteps of the U.S. Capitol building, featuring international chart-topping performers.
With dozens of events to choose from in every corner of the city, there's something for everyone here. Pride in DC isn't about observing, it's about participating, and we can't wait.
Sydney World Pride, which ran for 17 days and concluded on March 5th, incorporated Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras with over 300 events. While people are still relishing the memories of the World Pride, Washington, D.C. is getting ready for World Pride 2025. 2025 will mark 50 years of Pride in Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. is ready to celebrate this momentous occasion with the world. World Pride D.C. 2025 will feature a vibrant and innovative variety of events and cultural programs. From music to film, from the National Mall to Embassy Row, you will experience the world through Washington's multifaceted and multicultural community. Get ready for a historic march from Lincoln Memorial to the Capitol building in the footsteps of Martin Luther King Jr. and the millions of others who have demanded equality for all. World Pride DC 2025 will partner with Interpride to honor international community heroes with a dazzling red carpet gala at the world-renowned Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. The parade will feature brilliantly lit boats, yachts, and ferries along the Potomac River. Interpride members enjoy a special reception, including dancing, food, and music aboard the Pride flagship, the Odyssey DC. You will see thousands of businesses, homes, and landmarks displaying Pride flags. I got goosebumps like all over. This is going to be so incredible. Just that march alone. I mean, again, you have the boat parade, you have all these incredible events, but I'm thinking about that march in the same footsteps as Martin Luther King Jr. Like that march is going to be epic, life-changing. You know, this is the Pride that you don't want to miss, and you've got to take all those allies that have supported us along the ways and those people that are wishy-washy. Okay, like Julio says, that are on the fence. Take them to a Pride like this so they can really see us in numbers and us shining like only we can.
Well, having been to the 87 March and the 93 March, and was it the 2001 and then the 2017 was the most recent. Yeah, I'm a gold ribbon.
You're a platinum gay.
That's right.
And now, mind you, Gregg doesn't fly. Understand? So this is him driving there each time. He does not get on a plane.
The feeling when you were in DC during one of those kinds of things, it really is the gayest city anywhere. When you're on the metro, the DuPont Circle metro, you're on the subway coming up, and everybody's singing show tunes in the subway stations.
Done.
It's I just have goosebumps. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Just be aware that there was an election in 2024. So we just have to be careful that the good people are still in power in 2025.
It's interesting. The one downer to this that I echo is at least the possibility of consideration that the President of the United States for World Pride in Washington, D.C. is President Ron DeSantis.
And he cancels the whole thing.
And I'm happy that Gregg mentioned 1987 because the historian in me, that's what I immediately went to the March in 1987, which if we remember, happened because of the Supreme Court ruled in the Bowers decision that sodomy was absolutely constitutional, and it was also in response to the lackluster, apathetic, and really just not caring response of the Reagan administration's response to HIV/AIDS.
It was the display of the quilt.
That is, so even if there is in the quilt, so that is even if the administration doesn't look like people want it to look like, all the more reason why we got to show up and march and express our concern. I think I have to talk to my partner. We will be there, and I'm looking forward to. We'll all have a little.
You know, a lot of people don't realize. You jump in. A lot of people don't realize that percentage of population, DC has more LGBT people than any other city in America.
Gays in government, I don't believe it. Don't believe it.
There's got to be a yellow brick around here somewhere.
We reported at Core News Tonight, according to the Grindr story, the most active city in the world in Grindr is Washington, D.C. And it's not only because of the residents that live there, but it's because of all of the people that are coming in for the offices of power and embassy, etc., using their Grindr.
It's a very transient city, too.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
I've never been to a World Pride. So this would be my first one. So I am all in. I don't care how. I'm hitching a ride.
Let's
old
do it,
school,
Ruby.
like we were hitting Woodstock in '69.
Ask Patrick first.
Right.
You know, yes, you want to stay married until 25. So ask, right? You know, one other thing that I just in close to say about Washington, New York was really, really important in World Pride. But I agree with the idea of making comparisons to the March on Washington. Washington is the seat of power, and Washington makes all of the important and relevant decisions about our lives, both in terms of economic, in terms of law, in terms of student debt relief, in terms of the court's ruling on our rights, in terms of the decision of the Equality Act, in terms of. I guess I never really realized that a World Pride celebration in Washington really is a reflection of, at my point in my life or your life, it likely will be the only time that we get to see something like this in the United States. A reasonable chance again. So as a result, that is historic. And the other thing that I think is really important when I make the observation that in 25, we could have a President Ron DeSantis being the President of the United States. Right now, leading up to World Pride in 25, we have somebody named President Joe Biden, which is arguably, I make the observation about Obama, arguably at this point in terms of historic timeline will go down as the most important LGBT embracing president in the history of this republic. And we're right in this transition period. Are we going to keep a Joe Biden, or could a Ron DeSantis come into power? And this World Pride is sitting there right on the other side of that finish line in 2024. I pretty much know where I want it to go. I hope everybody else thinks the same thing.
Agreed, 1000%. Next, let's queer up politics. Bill and Hillary, Pete Buttigieg denounce attacks on LGBTQ+ community at Clinton Global Initiative. Bill and Hillary Clinton and Pete Buttigieg denounce attacks on the LGBTQ+ community while in Nashville for the Clinton Global Initiative U conference, that is. This was the first in-person Clinton Global Initiative University held since the pandemic. Former President Bill Clinton told Vanderbilt University students that many current elected leaders are clinging to power by sowing division through wedge issues like transgender rights. Clinton spoke alongside his wife, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and daughter Chelsea Clinton at Vanderbilt's Langford Auditorium. Clinton's namesake foundation was founded in 2001 and has over the years launched programs including CGIU in 2007 to empower a younger generation of leaders to tackle problems in their communities. The CGIU conference kicked off a day after Tennessee's governor signed into law a measure that restricts drag performances in public. He also signed a separate law blocking transgender teens from seeking hormone therapy and surgical procedures. The latest in a wave of anti-LGBTQ+ bills that have been filed in Republican-controlled states. Buttigieg, in a separate interview with WPLN, said he was also concerned by Tennessee's anti-LGBTQ+ legislation. Buttigieg was the first openly gay presidential candidate to run for the Democratic nomination in 2020. Now, in my opinion, if we can't keep Biden, I'd love to see Buttigieg for president.
It's not time yet, but soon, I think.
Love to see that man's name on a ticket, because I believe that this is a really strong representative of how to keep everything in order without swaying so far left, so far right. He's an easier individual to really kind of get the message across the aisle. This is a tougher long shot in the long run, but it's still a possibility, I think.
The only person in the most radical circles, Newsmax, et cetera, and it gets even worse from there, that is hated more than Joe Biden is Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah. That's why I love him.
And he's definitely a moderate. I mean, to say the least. I mean, he's kind of a hawk, and like he has not a great policy on race and like an issue, but and lots of other things. But he has changed. I mean, he's also. I want to use the word that Obama used in when he came to same-sex marriage, and that was evolve. He had evolved on the issue, and Buttigieg has certainly. But in many issues, he's kind of moved and further to the center, I would say, from where he was, and even further left.
Definitely.
This administration, in that way, I think has been good for him. I can only imagine what as we think about what's happening to Carter right now, for example, as he lays in
hospice,
in the hospice, and past presidents, even I mean, I don't want to say the others, but that is to imagine what's happening. And then we were just talking about this before the show started. It feels like the world is on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, of course they're going to criticize anti-LGBT stuff because we have spent so many decades, right? And so many of them had a sometimes very rocky road towards getting there, but you know, they got there, right? Like, think about Clinton, right, and the Defense of Marriage Act, and then he came out saying like I was wrong, like, and he to make room, as we said earlier, for people to evolve.
You know, more to the evolution. Are the Clintons relevant today? Do we? For America and LGBT, do we think that there's any relevance here?
Well, didn't Tulsi Gabbard just attack Hillary at the CPAC thing?
Okay.
So Hillary is still on people's minds.
Okay, yeah, but broadly, are the Clintons?
You know, I wouldn't have said 5 years ago, that was possible to even say that, what you just said, and I'm increasingly, I agree with you. That is that the world, the parties have had such realignment that the Clintons almost just seem like they're from outer space.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, like
they're a very quiet clan. But I still believe that they have an important voice. And there are some very large groups who are listening,
and
mainly the women. Exactly. Their platform's still very relevant and important, especially to the women, and I believe also with the LGBTQ plus community.
Why aren't women clamoring then over Hillary's voice of be propelling the women's voice? I don't hear that.
The reason we don't hear it is kind of like the same example of why there are no women lesbian bars. They're not supporting in the vast, huge numbers to make the noise to be heard, to be seen, and to say we are as valuable as everyone else in the community.
Do you agree with that?
I mean,
I don't see the support.
No, I don't see the support either. And I don't know if the lesbians are waiting for someone that's dynamic and huge to lead them, you know, and that hasn't really happened. Somebody hasn't really stepped up to the plate to do that, you know. I wish that Hillary's voice was louder, okay? Her and Chelsea have this show on Apple TV or Hulu or something like that. Yes. And then now with this conference, etc. But, you know, it takes me back to when Clinton was running for president and he played the saxophone on, you know, on Arsenio Hall. He got so much backlash for that, and that was something that had never been seen. Oh my God, this candidate on a black person's show, it was a big deal. We need some of that now. We need some of that, like, just breaking ceilings now that are just like not the norm. All the crap that we've tried before is not working.
You know, 2 quick points. The GOP and what we're watching right now, Nikki Haley has put herself out there and her voice is almost irrelevant in the GOP. CPAC, she went to CPAC, where DeSantis didn't go to CPAC. She had almost no voice presence at all. And generally, please, you know, I was going to apologize, but no, I'm not even going to apologize for saying it. White old men in the GOP don't care about the women's voice in the GOP. It seems to me that progressive voice does care about women, but the question is, who is propelling the women's voice? Just and like in LGBT, who is propelling the women's voice in LGBT? So inside LGBT and outside LGBT, those suburban moms that I heard so much about in the suburbs of Philadelphia are critically important to coming to the table and saying we won't do that, which is why I ask about Chelsea and Hillary, because they should be the voices that are helping to lead that, and they are not. At least I don't hear them, and so I don't understand where the women are in this fight.
Or Michelle Obama also.
Who I think is a big voice.
Very much.
I was going to use her as an example.
Right.
I mean, I think the answer to that.
Really? Wait. Michelle Obama is a big voice in American politics to standing against DeSantis?
I think you have a very strict idea of what politics means.
Okay.
That is,
well,
like,
what does that mean?
I think there's she's very vocal about different ideas of family, of inclusion, I mean, her new book suggests that very clearly too. Her podcast, and I would say the same. I mean, I think that not all politics is just standing in, with a banner or something, with a placard saying this is, that politics looks a lot of different ways by existing, right? And by having a clear voice and a perspective and fighting against those that, I think that's clear politics.
She's being an ally her way.
Yeah.
She's doing a damn good job of it. I mean, do we expect more?
Yeah, well, that, and I'm not criticizing Michelle Obama's voice of what she's saying. What I'm criticizing is women across the board, in that they don't seem to be in the fight, at least visibly in the news. We CPAC just happened, and principally it's older white men that are on attack on these, and you don't hear the female voice saying, the women's voice saying, we don't stand for this, or this is, the issue on abortion, being so critically interrelated to LGBT rights. We don't see that. Nancy Pelosi is a very old woman who has given up power. She was a humongous voice in American politics to fight for women's voices. Who has come in on that vacuum of Nancy Pelosi's departure as the majority leader in the House? I just don't see where the fight is. Yeah. That's what I'm asking.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, you don't.
I don't disagree with you at all, because
well, you're not disagreeing with me.
I am, but I love to disagree with you.
It's okay to disagree.
I need half a reason.
Listen, disagreeing is the way to, by having disagreements is the way that we all get to learn a little something very important. So disagreements is fantastic in my book. I do agree with you in the sense of, I don't see one woman that's kind of rallying a large crowd that's roaring out there. But here's what I do see. What I do see is a variety of women in different areas of the scope of whether it's the arts, politics, media, who are slowly but surely making their voices heard, but they're not all congregated together. You have certain female actresses that are very much in the fight. You have like Alyssa Milano, who's constantly talking about, hey, I don't like this, I don't want this, me too, what's going on? Then you've got other people in different media forums just kind of saying, can we find a way to change this? How do we support? And asking more questions. But is there one leading them all?
I hope I'm not misunderstood, because all I'm saying is I want the strong woman's voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
As example, we went into the midterms and everyone thought, Stacey Abrams is going to come out on the other side and she's going to be one of the great voices in America. Yes. And we're 5 months later, and has anybody heard from Stacey Abrams?
But we also have to see the impact she had. How many people did she get registered? So of course she had that. Like, that is, just because she didn't win doesn't mean that she didn't, that is, she got so many more people voting. Look at the look at the Congress.
Am I being too myopic to acknowledge that and go, okay, but what did Stacey Abrams do for America and progressive politics last month?
I mean,
am I being too myopic?
No. Yes.
Okay.
No,
all right.
I don't think.
Okay.
I'm laughing because Julio's like, yes, and I'm like, no.
One last thought that I want to make. One of the things that was interesting in this story, and I just remind everybody, when Hillary ran for president, I thought, until this story came along and the conference happened, the university conference at Vanderbilt happened, I thought the Clinton Global Initiative was gone. Remember? Nope, we're dissolving the Clinton Global Initiative because of the conflict issue when she was running for president. And this is the first time I have seen in years a story about the Clinton Global Initiative, which I'm happy about, because the Clinton Global Initiative, before the politics of her running for president of the United States, was one of the great foundation supports in the world. Clinton Global Initiative was so powerful. Bill Clinton was finally hitting on all cylinders all over the world, and it was destroyed by the election in 2016 with Donald Trump.
So maybe they'll get back to that.
And that's what I'm saying. Gosh, I hope that happens, because the Clinton Global Initiative was incredible for LGBT women. Issues with climate, issues of freedom and voting rights around the world. So many issues that they were just.
It had a pretty problematic history too. Like its connections to Haiti. I could always talk. Leave it to Julio to problematize that.
Julio, calm down.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I'm a historian. Wooksonian.
Can everyone join me in congratulating Julio on his last presentation?
Everyone. Thank you very much.
Now,
all right.
We're going to clear up drag culture. Jon Stewart destroys GOP anti-drag queen argument over hypocrisy of guns. In the latest episode of his Apple TV series, The Problem with Jon Stewart, Stewart sat down with Oklahoma Senator Nathan Dahm to discuss the lawmaker's pro-gun stance as the U.S. faces an increased number of mass shootings. The Republican politician has filed bills loosening Oklahoma gun restrictions. This included an anti-red flag law, which would make it easier for people who are deemed dangerous by police or family members to access firearms. Dahm said he believed that allowing more guns in the U.S. will result in a safer nation, which Stewart quickly called into question. He asked, quote, "You're saying more guns makes us more safe?" End quote. To which Dahm said, yes. Dahm proceeded to proverbially shoot himself in the foot when Dahm argued it's the individual that is the problem, rather than easy access to arms. Jon Stewart also questioned Dahm about why he and many other Republicans want to ban children from seeing drag performances. Stewart asked the politician why he felt so strongly about the kid-friendly and physically harmless events, but cared very little about the gun violence epidemic in the U.S. The interview clip has been widely shared on social media, with many, including basketball legend LeBron James, praising Stewart for holding Dahm to account and interrogating him on his pro-gun, anti-drag logic. Nathan Dahm is a goddamn dummy. Really, how is it possible to love Jon Stewart any more than we already do?
Yeah.
And by the way, I can hardly wait for the Broadway premiere of the new musical, Oklahomophobia.
Oklahomophobia.
You're very funny. I love your puns and your wit.
Really?
I do.
You
I
do?
buy it. I'm a sucker
tonight,
for
I
that.
disagree with you on almost every single thing. No,
Including that.
Right.
I can't.
No, but I do. I love a bad pun. Anyway.
What is this red flag law that he's talking about?
Well, in broad terms, without getting into the specifics of that, one of the reasons, and by the way, we're very sorry at Queer News Tonight that we could not show you this video. Apple has it tied down so tight, you can't see it anywhere except Apple. However, go and watch it. It is so incredible, because rarely, now to the answer of your question, rarely in the conversation, he talks mostly about guns, and Jon Stewart is keenly interested about what's happening in guns. He walks him to the conclusion of him saying more guns means we're safer. We have 400 million guns in America, and we have the highest number of gun deaths in the world. More guns mean we'll be safer? I mean, he looks so ridiculous, the senator from Oklahoma.
And he said yes.
And he said yes, exactly. He looked ridiculous. But what was really interesting in the moment is the reason why we encourage you to go to Apple and see this exchange moment is because rarely, after the defense of guns and defense of guns and defense of guns and safety and protection, etc., do you see the Hansel and Gretel moment of putting down the breadcrumbs and Hansel and Gretel come right along and let me bring you to my oven. Let me open the door now. Let me put some more breadcrumbs in the oven. Please, Hansel and Gretel, get in the oven and then close the door. You watch that moment.
Brilliant.
Jon Stewart brilliantly walks this senator to the conclusion of going, wait, protection, and what you're doing on drag law is to protect children from people that are highly sexualizing dress, which is what drag queens are. Is that important to you? Yes, it's an absolute critical issue. But and then Jon Stewart goes, but the number one thing that's actually affecting children in America is gun deaths. You're not caring about that, but you're worrying about drag queens. And you watch the senator from Oklahoma basically go blank because he's watching inside the oven as the oven door closes on.
I am watching this tonight when I get home.
I encourage you. That's the answer on the red flag. He just crushes him in terms of how gun laws and how their exact same philosophies of trans and drag queens and all of the other ridiculous culture gaslighting issues that are going on was just crushed.
We love you more now, Jon Stewart.
I'm not
totally do. I mean, literally, listen, think about it. He did what we would all want to do, right? Like, just like sit a senator down and go, okay, now you're accountable for me. Let's go. Yeah. You chose to do this, and this. You agree with this, and this. How do you feel? Right there to his face.
I'm gonna piss a lot of people off. As outstanding as Jon Stewart was in this moment, again, we encourage you, watch this on Apple Television. We would show it to you if we could. It is so incredible. However, I do have to congratulate Senator Dom of Oklahoma, because the Ted Cruz moment would have been just to explode and walk off the step. Yeah. The Ron DeSantis moment would have been just to sit there and not speak. Look left. Look right.
I wrote a book. Read it.
Yeah, and that would have been his strategy and answer. Right. Dom at least tries to stay in the conversation and even prompts when Jon Stewart says, do you know what? You're probably going to tell me, and fills in the blank. At least I give him credit of staying in the conversation. He got crushed and the oven door got closed on him, but I do congratulate him above a Ron DeSantis or a Ted Cruz or Lady G in South Carolina, because at least he stayed in the conversation.
Senator Dom, you got your ass beat.
Like, I'm always. Go ahead.
Next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church right here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m.
I'm Glenn Weinzimmer, founder of the Smart Ride, second largest AIDS bicycle ride in the country, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, Fox News, Tucker Carlson, and conservatives have suggested the LGBTQ community has a secret plan, and we can only guess it is for world domination. We couldn't agree more, and we are going to tell you all about it in our segment called The Gay Agenda.
In The Gay Agenda, we queer up health. Care Resource says the COVID-19 vaccine is still critical to LGBTQ+ health. The latest COVID Omicron subvariant continues to rapidly spread across the United States and is the most genetically transmissible form of the virus to date. As cases rise nationally, Care Resource shares a YouTube video to remind people that it is time to get vaccinated if anybody has not received a vaccine or booster in the last 5 months. People can self-schedule their next no-cost vaccination at careresource.org.
The latest COVID Omicron subvariant continues to rapidly spread across the U.S. and is the most genetically transmissible form of the virus to date. As cases rise nationally, Care Resource wants to remind everyone, if you have not received a vaccine or booster in the last 5 months, get vaccinated. Self-schedule your next no-cost vaccination at careresource.org. Care Resource, your community source for health care.
In the gay agenda, we queer up South Florida and Florida. Florida's Cape Coral Pride happens despite Fort Myers' political pushback.
Today was Cape Coral's 5th annual Pride celebration. Our Fox 4 crew headed to Cape Coral there today. The two-day celebration taking place today and tomorrow, March 5th, on Southeast 47th Terrace between Southeast 9th Place and Southeast 11th Place.
It's about being free and accepted and coming together as one and being family and having a good time and a fun time and a safe time and a great environment and a positive environment.
Organizers say they are expecting thousands of people there in attendance. Pride Cape Coral is a Florida nonprofit with a mission to facilitate a welcoming environment for members and allies of the LGBTQIA+ community through education, support, and recognition.
Pride Cape Coral is a tradition that started in 2019 as a way for people of all identities to come together and feel accepted while doing so. This year, Cape Coral hosted its 5th annual Pride celebration despite the political drama and pushback. Last week, a state senator filed what he called the Protection of Children bill, which calls for hotels or restaurants to lose licenses if they admit a child to an adult live performance. Governor Ron DeSantis calls drag shows inappropriate for kids, and so does Florida Senate President Kathleen Passidomo. Cape Coral City Manager Rob Hernandez has accused Cape Coral Council members of being reluctant to support the Pride Festival.
In the gay agenda, we are going to queer up the worldview. History is made as 50,000 march across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, including the Australian Prime Minister.
The euphoria was dizzying. Halfway across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, Hannah popped the question, and Gretel said yes.
Such a moment. I'm sorry, I'm crying.
She wasn't alone. The right to marry came too late for Peter de Waal.
We were a couple for 50 years, and he died 7 months before we could get married, and we wanted to get married. So, yeah. So it's a very emotional journey, a pilgrimage.
The victims of the AIDS epidemic front of mind.
Thousands of young men, mainly young men, we lost. So I'll be remembering them.
I think people are thinking of the ones that have gone.
The Prime Minister was among 50,000 marchers.
Do you think we've achieved acceptance yet for the rainbow community?
There's still more to do, but it's certainly much better than it was.
The actor Sam Neill walked in solidarity.
Pride, of course, is the opposite of shame, and there was a lot of shame back in the day, but that's all. That's pretty much gone, and I'm glad of that. But this isn't true of everywhere in the world, and I think that's what World Pride is about.
The festival has been a test of stamina.
I've had absolutely no sleep. There were 5 of us that went out last night. My body aches. I'm the only survivor that has made it here today. But I look at the bigger picture and what this means for other people, and I thought, I have to do it.
Making the world more accepting for the next generation.
It's the best day of our life, I would say.
Much of the crowd marched on to Oxford Street, which has been shut this weekend for a street party. This marks the end of 17 days of Sydney World Pride. The celebrations will continue into the night, with the street closed until 10 p.m.
Happy Pride!
The party with purpose not over quite yet. Alexander Lewis, ABC News, Sydney.
Well, congratulations, Sydney. You made the entire LGBT world proud. Celebrating the achievements made to date while acknowledging the work still to be done, 50,000 people, as you saw there, turned out to make history as they marched across the iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge as part of Sydney World Pride's Pride March. The march showcased a powerful international statement of unity and the demand for equality, not only in Australia, but all of LGBTQ people worldwide. Marchers from across the globe went all out, being doused in glitter, dressing in bright colors, waving pride flags, and walking from north to south across that bridge. The march marked the final day of the Sydney World Pride, which ran for 17 days from February 17 to March 5th, and incorporated the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras with over 300 events.
In the gay agenda, we queer up health. CDC warns about bacterial infection rising among gay men.
The CDC issuing a warning about a rise in a highly drug-resistant stomach bug. Elena Athens joins us live now with more on the story. Elena?
Yeah, good afternoon to you, John. The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services say that they haven't seen any of these cases just yet in our state. However, they are expecting them to start popping up because of how transmissible this infection and the bacteria itself is. So the drug-resistant bacteria is called Shigella. There are limited antimicrobial treatments available for these particular strains, and it is easily transmissible. It can spread through things like person-to-person contact or contaminated food or water. An infectious disease expert says medical professionals classically see these cases in daycare centers or group settings, such as nursing homes, but now the number overall of cases are rising.
One of those organisms that what we call is invasive, so it invades the surface of the intestines, and so it's not uncommon to see blood in the stool with that. With Shigella, abdominal pain, high fevers, people can get quite sick from it.
So that doctor says the best way to protect yourself is overall good hygiene, washing your hands, making sure your food is refrigerated right away here if you're in the States. However, he says if you are traveling overseas, perhaps to a less developed country, opt for bottled water and food that has been cooked thoroughly. We're live in Raleigh. Elena Athens, ABC 11 Eyewitness News.
The Centers for Disease Control has issued a warning to healthcare providers about a rise in antibiotic-resistant shigellosis, a condition overrepresented among gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men, as well as people living with HIV. The bacterial infection shigellosis affects the digestive tract and usually causes inflammatory diarrhea that can be bloody. The infection may also lead to fever, abdominal cramping, and tenesmus, a continual or recurrent urge to evacuate the bowels. According to the CDC, Shigella bacteria are transmitted by the fecal-oral route, directly through person-to-person contact, including sexual contact, and indirectly through contaminated food, water, and other ingested materials.
In the gay agenda, we queer up the worldview. Kyiv Pride says war with Russia changed everything on LGBTQ+ rights in Ukraine. Over the past year, there have been dozens of reports of trans and homophobic attacks carried out by Russian troops in occupied territories. But Moscow's homophobia hasn't been the only challenge LGBTQ+ people have had to deal with during the war. While Ukraine has made progress in recent years to become more supportive of the LGBTQ+ community, it still lags behind many Western European countries. But activists say the conflict has drawn attention to the inequalities the community faces, and many feel more visible than ever. This shift is also being seen at a government level as Kyiv struggles to join the European Union. Ukraine Pride has also been pushing for the adoption of Bill 5488, which would impose penalties for hate crimes.
In the gay agenda, we queer up gay culture. Hot Shots Happening Out presents the Stonewall National Museum and Archives 50th Anniversary Gala. The Stonewall National Museum and Archives and Library recently celebrated completing 50 successful years of history and pride. Here's how it went.
Hot Shots Happening Out celebrates Stonewall National Museum Archives and Library. Stonewall National Museum and Archives 50th Anniversary Gala. Florida recently celebrated 50 years of Stonewall National Museum and Archives. The gala had everything from gourmet dinner, cocktails, live and silent auctions to entertainment by Synergy Twins. The purpose of the gala was to raise $500,000 to support Stonewall's library, archives, programming, exhibitions, and Stonewall's National Education Project. The event celebrated history pride at the Westin Fort Lauderdale Beach Resort. The honorees included esteemed personalities like Margaret Mary G. Wilson, MD Executive Vice President and Chief Medical Officer of United Health Group, and the Leader of Tomorrow recipient, Xander Moritz. He is the Executive Director and founder of SEE Alliance. Keep watching our incredible LGBTQ plus world at Hotshots Happening Out. Follow and subscribe to celebrate the best of us. This is our nonprofit 501c3 mission from Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, and we know it is, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including FayWhat, Dr. Julio Capo Jr., DJ Nena, and Gregg Shapiro. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end our show, we have one final story.
Let's end our show by queering up LGBTQ plus civil rights. The youngest member of Congress, Maxwell Frost, talks about importance of LGBTQ plus community. The Florida LGBTQ plus Democratic Caucus represents the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community to the Florida Democratic Party. They are a statewide organization with 21 local chapters around the state. The Florida LGBTQ plus Democratic Caucus is chartered by the Florida Democratic Party. The youngest member of Congress, Representative Maxwell Frost, talked to its supporters recently about the big issues the LGBTQ plus community faces. He mentioned the hateful remarks of vengeance, Governor Ron DeSantis, who takes every opportunity to attack anyone that doesn't look like or think like him, and the law like Don't Say Gay that attacks queer children, families, and schools. Frost also mentioned the attack on drag shows and performers. He requested the community members raise their voices for equality and equity.
Hello, brothers, sisters, and siblings. This is Congressman Maxwell Alejandro Frost, and I'm so sorry I wasn't able to join you tonight, but I wanted to take this opportunity to thank President Stephen Gaskell for allowing me to welcome the Florida LGBTQ plus Democratic Caucus to my beautiful city of Orlando, Florida, for the 2023 Rise Up Winter Conference. Welcome to Florida's 10th Congressional District. Cheer! I bet you're cheering. Look, I want to make sure y'all check out our delicious food and vibrant nightlife that we have here in Orlando. And I also want to tell you, now more than ever, I hope that everybody in this room knows just how important the work is that each and every single one of you do. Because as all of you know, from our LGBTQ plus community across the Sunshine State, we must be strong, united, and feel heard. But let's be honest about what we're facing here in Florida and across the country. A hateful and vengeant Governor Ron DeSantis, who takes every opportunity to attack anyone that doesn't look like or think like him, in a Republican-led legislature that gives him anything that he wants, at the cost of you, the people, marginalized communities across the entire state. In the last year alone, Florida Republicans have proven just how far they'll go to consolidate power. From Don't Say Gay, Don't Say LGBTQ+, a horrible piece of legislation that attacks our queer children and families and schools, and really in all places, to vetoing bipartisan mental health funding and resources for innocent victims of the Pulse nightclub shooting, which happened right here in Orlando, where we lost 49 lives in our backyard. And I'll encourage y'all, while you're here in Orlando, please go to Pulse nightclub. It's a place where I go often to ground myself in the work that we do. To launching a bigoted attack on drag shows across our entire state. He even went as far as to work to revoke a liquor license to a venue right here in Orlando that hosted a Christmas drag show last year, Plaza Live, effectively abusing his power to close a small business he disagrees with. To now the hostile takeover of the New College of Florida, a small liberal arts school in our state over in Sarasota that has become a safe haven for over 600 students, half of them being queer students. DeSantis and his allies in the legislature are trying to take this all away, every right every resource, and every safe space the community has ever had. But because of our opposition, it all comes down to one thing: hate. They hate that you are different than them, that we are all different from them. They hate that we have a voice and we know how to use it. And make no mistake, they're afraid of our power. That's why they're working so hard to silence us and take away our vote. And it's for that reason that I urge everyone in this room to keep being loud. We can't let this governor or any legislature across the country, whether it's in this state or any state, drown out the voices of our LGBTQ plus people and families who deserve nothing less than equality and equity, the same rights and protections that are granted for all Americans. And we will not let anyone tell us who we can be, who we can love, and how we have to act in order to be given our constitutional freedoms of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and human rights and dignity. Fascist Ron DeSantis and his lapdog Republican leaders are full of hate. But we know that the one thing that can drown out hate is love. And if you know me, you know I love to talk about love. This caucus and this movement are about love and true freedom. And to the folks here today, I know this fight is hard. I know every day feels like we have to mount a defense from attack to attack to attack, but please don't give up hope. I mean, look around this room, look at the people around you, your brothers, sisters, and siblings in this fight and struggle for justice. I want to let you know that I'm right there with you in this fight, and I will be until the very end, till a day that we don't have to fight any longer. Because unlike Florida Republicans and this governor, I believe in true freedom and true patriotism. Patriotism is more than a flag. It's about loving the people who live in that country. I believe in love and respect towards my fellow Floridians. We can't give up our fight against hate and bigotry. We can't let them win, and we won't let them win. In Washington, D.C., and right here in Orlando, I'm going to keep fighting like hell to do what's right for everyone in this room. I always like to say that I want to be more than an ally to the LGBTQ plus community. I want to be a partner, an accomplice in this work. And I say that because we are in a time right now where the undisputed right thing to do is to support issues and to support legislation like the Equality Act, marriage equality, trans rights. I'm going to fight for the LGBTQ plus protections that everybody deserves, for the equality and equity that should be a human right for every single American, no matter who you are, both at the federal level and here at home. I know that together we can make sure to preserve the true freedom that should be a right in Florida. And just remember that the only thing that drowns out hate is love. A radical love that permeates so deep. We look at each other and say, my success is your success, and your success is my success. And I know you all feel that love in this room right now. So please never stop fighting. Thank you for everything that you do, for never giving up. Thank you for allowing me to be a partner in this struggle and fight with you. My door is always open. My office is always here to listen and serve. I love you all so much, and have a great day.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBT